Private Pyle, I think we finally found something that you do well.
Sir, yes, sir.
You're the world's expert on this, and so I just have to ask. We can get every congressman and every senator, and they do. They come on here, and we've gone with congressman and senator to the assassination site in Butler. But my brother, you know more than these senators, and you do know more about the intricacies of how this all works than all of these congressmen. Is it conceivable that the U.S. government had some hand in nudging the live execution attempt on Donald Trump?
Of course, it's completely conceivable, and it could be done through a very simple operation. And I'll sketch it out here. And again, I think you and I have even talked about this through line between the January 6th pipe bomber, episode and the J13 assassination attempt. Remember this. Could the federal government have a hand in planting what we were told were live pipe bomb devices at the major party governments of both the RNC headquarters building and the DNC headquarters building? Well, could the federal government have a hand in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing? I mean, remember, was it Omar Saleh, the FBI informant in 1993, who the New York Times even printed his taped conversation with his FBI handlers when he was personally planting explosive devices in the basement of the World Trade Center, and then complained to his handlers in a recorded call after the bomb went off, saying, "I thought you were going to switch the materials out." We can go through a million examples of this, from the ISIS, the so-called ISIS attack on Garland, Texas, the first ISIS attack, which went through an entire criminal trial and 3 years of headlines. You can argue we went to war against Syria over this incident, literally put military boots on the ground, citing the precedent that ISIS had just attacked Garland, Texas. We already had thousands of troops in Syria. We already concluded 2 criminal trials before it finally came to light through a leak from the Arizona FBI field office that the whole thing was an FBI plot the entire time. The FBI had paid an informant something like $125,000 to become the shooter's best friend, and was even texting him to, quote, tear up Texas before he did it. And not only that, the FBI had a secret unmarked car tailing the shooter on the way to the shooting and still didn't stop it. Now that none of that was known until the attempted murder trial had already concluded, and we had already declared war on Syria. So, and I could go through a million examples of this, from the Whitmer Fednapping. How could the FBI be involved in a plot to kidnap and assassinate the governor of Michigan? And and again, members of Congress, if you're listening, you need to do this. Subpoena the chain of custody for the stationary camera overlooking the park bench at the DNC headquarters. Kamala Harris was vanned over to practically squat over the pipe bomb device that the FBI has been quiet as a friggin' pin drop for 4 years now about. They've not uploaded a new video file in 3.5 years, September 2021. I watch every week. They have that camera showing the pipe bomber taking the pipe bomb out of the bag and planting it, or not planting it, interestingly, because we don't know actually, 17 hours before that device was found by Secret Service, which, remember, Kamala Harris lied about, because for the first 10 months, she said she was at the Capitol building, or everyone said that she was at the Capitol building, and it was in Justice Department indictments, and people were getting arrested for racial intimidation, for chasing around the first, black female vice president elect. And that took until a year later to find out, actually, we need to redo those grand jury indictments, because Kamala Harris was actually, basically Eiffel Towering a DNC pipe bomb discovered by the Secret Service, who should have been casing it way before then. That was the park bench at the front entrance to the building, guys. This was not some secret location. I walk right by it. It's the park bench at the front entrance to the building, and it was planted on the leg there, we're told, 17 hours before. And the FBI has a tape of the pipe bomber taking it out of the bag, but they haven't shown anybody. Why do you think that might be? What if it was a different device? And by the way, what did the Secret Service do as soon as it was found out that they were the ones who found the pipe bomb and that it was because Kamala Harris was there that day? Oh, well, they ran an emergency cell phone update that magically wiped all cell phone communications and records of the Secret Service just weeks after this story broke. Okay, it's a 1-2 punch where the Secret Service pulls it off or makes way for the operation. They I ain't looking, let it happen in tandem with either a DHS or an FBI operation to radicalize someone to do this or to use one of their own assets. And getting back to this situation here, I mean, I go off. There's so much here, but again, members of Congress, this is real easy. And look, the FBI, they're going to tell you we don't have it anymore. We issued an update that deleted it. You know, the same thing they did with the cell phone. You know, when everyone said, "Hey, the pipe bomber was sitting on the park bench, tapping on his cell phone, texting people. Why don't you geofence and get those communications?" And then it comes out 2.5 years later. Well, actually, magically, those cell phone communications were corrupted. Very convenient. But make them say that. Make them say the dog ate my security footage. Make them say a lightning bolt struck the stationary camera. The FBI, there's a missing money shot of the pipe bomber taking the bomb out. Yes. This is exactly. Now you'll see, and there's a second camera that you'll see here too. This is just the frame rate footage. Okay, because he'll sit on the second bench when he comes back. But what you'll see is, so I believe this was the March. Okay, so actually, if you go back a second there, I'll show you. If you go back a second here, okay. No, forward. It's okay. Okay, it's fine. There's 3 pieces of footage from this site that have been released.
Yep. Up with the rest. We have
that's
more.
One of them. The other one
Pop
is from a shrubbery. But what you can see is that person we're told that person took something out of the bag and walked off, and it was found 17 hours later. It was planted at 8 p.m. on January 5th and discovered at 1 p.m. the next day. Why don't they leave the camera running? Even if you just go back to that first clip you played. You see how he's right there? Okay?
I think this is the one you're talking about. Yep.
Well, this one, but notice how what he takes out of the bag is occluded by a bush in this, right? If you go back to the first clip that you played,
yep,
you'll notice he walks up to the park bench, but then the camera stops. Like that is it follows him out of frame. Even though it blurs amazingly, if you zoom in, and it actually blurs this guy's eyeballs so that you can't. There's a whole separate scandal here that I can tell you about another time. But if you just pause it here for a second, okay, or just right before that box comes up, okay, that second park bench, he walks out of frame and comes back to that park bench on the other one in order to take a bomb out of the bag. We're told he takes it and plants it at the front right leg. Why the hell did the FBI stop this tape? We're told it was about 7 minutes later that he returns to these exact benches and takes the bomb out of the bag and puts it on the front leg of that park bench chair. Hey, FBI, while you're offering a $500,000 reward for any information leading to the arrest, would you mind showing us the commission of the crime? But what if it wasn't the same device?
The reports are now that the gunman Thomas Crooks hung out at the Clarion Sportsman Club, which is frequented by the Department of Homeland Security for training, and that he was training on a very specific rifle for very specific distances. And the Homeland Security, of course, is the agency that houses the Secret Service. And many are scratching their heads saying, hold on, this guy was brushing shoulders with federal agents? It seems like really curious. Maybe they knew this guy. Your thoughts, Mike? Well,
specifically, I don't know enough about the minutia of gun ranges to know if, every gun range in the area, has some sort of local police or FBI or DHS, sort of connection to it, if that's something that's a relatively, frequent thing.
Sure.
I would need to know more about that. And I'm actually quite interested, because one of the things that's so concerning about the DHS specificity there is, I have been saying since day one, practically, if certainly week one, that it would be remarkably easy to pull this off all in-house within DHS through the following mechanism. We know that January 6th was...
By this, you mean an assassination on President Trump?
Yes.
Okay.
Allowing a clear shot on the United States president, at a rally. We know that DHS, and specifically a division called HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, had more feds on January 6th than the FBI did. They were running something through the JTTF, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, to recruit informants in the Oath Keepers, the Proud Boys, and the 3%ers. And there's a great tape that I've referenced many times now, a 45-minute audio that was recorded lawfully, but discreetly, by a former Oath Keeper named Jeremy Brown, who was recruited by two HSI, Homeland Security Investigations officers, starting about 2 months before January 6th, but then ramping up into a month before, and even called him on his personal cell phone twice the morning of January 6th. This is all, by the way, in federal documents. You can they can read all about it, and you can listen to this, and I can post on my timeline. But it was HSI actively recruiting intelligence assets within the same militias that they were targeting and surveying, in order to turn against the Trump movement and to infiltrate and to participate in January 6th events. Now, HSI is an interesting sort of outfit unto itself. DHS is a little bit different than the FBI, because the FBI is supposed to be the intelligence arm of the Justice Department. So everything has to run through justice. Everything has to be, approved by them. There has to be a law-breaking predicate. You have to, get all the paperwork, because it has to be criminal. But DHS is not. DHS is sort of a free-roaming agency in that way. It's not. DHS is the only other intelligence agency other than the FBI, but it's not attached to the Justice Department. It can do its own thing. And it's been reported that because of the NATO summit going on that week and the Jill Biden event going on that day during the Butler rally, that there was a reduced Secret Service presence covering Donald Trump, and that they were replaced by agents from HSI.
Yes.
Now, if HSI also had representation at this gun range, that is, all it would have taken. Now, one of the things I come back to is look at the timing. Okay, not only was this shooting, this attempted assassination, the day before the RNC convention to nominate someone, so it would have been super easy doing it that way to put in a Nikki Haley, and it was 2 weeks after the SCOTUS immunity decision ended, the Justice Department's ability to kill Trump through 1,000 years in prison. But this seemed really ready to go, didn't it? The Butler rally took place 1 week, just 1 week after it was announced. And in just 1 week, this guy, 20-year-old kid, got drone surveillance, was able to, scope the place, was able to construct 3 homemade pipe bombs. God, where have I heard that before? And if you remember, the FBI was busted teaching right-wing militia people to make pipe bombs in the Gretchen Whitmer Fednapping case. The thing they were actually arrested on was attempting to purchase weapons of mass destruction, i.e. pipe bombs, that were sold to them by FBI agents. And not only that, before the FBI attempted to sell them pipe bomb materials, the FBI created a Truman Show of federal agents to come to these people's meetings and teach them how to make pipe bombs. Okay, you can't look up how to make a pipe bomb in your local library. And if you try to Google it, don't do this, because you'll meet a lot of new friends who will be really, really into
destroying your life.
Edgy stuff if you do this. But if you run a Google search for how to make a pipe bomb, your life will be federally infiltrated so fast because those are ring-fence terms by the FBI. So the only way you can really learn to make homemade explosive devices is from someone else who knows how to make them, either from the military or a Fed. And the fact that this person, within a week, was able to scramble together not one, not two, three homemade explosive devices, in addition to the drone technology, in addition to serendipitously having all of the dominoes fall on security. We know from Josh Hawley's whistleblower, at least it's alleged, that there was supposed to be an agent on the roof, but they were told not to be there, or for some reason they wandered off because of the heat. What is that agent's name? Was that agent at the same gun range that Butler was, that Thomas Crooks was at? That would be interesting. How about the FBI's counter snipers who were supposed to be stationed overlooking the roof, but magically at the same time wandered off? I mean, both of these things need to happen simultaneously for this thing to happen. But all it would, I mean, think of how easy this would be to pull off. HSI comes in and replaces Secret Service. HSI, we know they said DHS uses that gun range. Well, was it HSI agents specifically? Well, which 4 or 5 agents were they? That may lead you to an answer here, or at least something much closer to it, because all of it could have been done in-house. If a small group at HSI had advanced awareness that there was an impressionable loner who was willing to shoot the president, and then serendipitously a rally is announced within driving distance, that kid can be activated, just like the FBI did in 2015 with the Garland, Texas shooting that led us to war in Syria, where they said, tear up Texas. Could have just said, tear up Butler. And here's another thing. We're told that they can't get his communications because they were foreign encrypted accounts. Well, all it would have taken is for those same agents to say, hey, buddy, we're going to talk on Signal. We're going to talk we're going to use a foreign encrypted account. And then boom. Now the whole thing is in-house. You evade the whole Justice Department oversight. The whole thing can have their cell phone communications deleted, just like the Secret Service did on January 6th with the pipe bomber, as soon as it was discovered that they were responsible for that and failing to catch that. And I'm putting that very charitably. But it could all be done in-house because the HSI was in charge of defense, and HSI is in charge of recruiting informants. Gee, that's really, really convenient.
It just blew our mind. I mean, we've done entire documentaries. We've gone there and looked with trained snipers and security experts and some of the best tactical guys that exist in Congress, and people who have been shot at and shot back successfully. And those guys are like, there's no explanation for this. This was a kill box. This was designed in order to have the maximum 3-dimensional probability of a kill, of a fatality. And no one has been able to answer these basic questions. And when given the opportunity, they lied. And then I don't consider myself to be Mike Benz level intelligence, but when you're lying, you're covering something up. The roof was sloped. We don't know where the sniper teams were. We don't know why they left. Donald Trump didn't request more security. Those are just off the top of my head, Mike, 4 verifiable lies. So their initial response here is to lie about it. What does that tell you in human nature? That they're covering it up. They're covering something up. Something terrible. Something really dark.
This is why we need the names of the agents. Now, listen, if they can use this as a sword, they can't use it as a shield. They lionized Harry Dunn. They had no problem doxing Harry Dunn and saying Harry Dunn saved the day when he stopped January 6 people. Okay, well, we need to know the names of federal agents when they goof up. No one's threatening anything. There's not anyone who does should be arrested for intimidating a public official. But the fact is, for pure accountability, they can't just jump on this grenade at the Kim Cheadle, Director Rowe level. The fact is, we need the names of the agents who were supposed to be stationed on the roof. If Josh Hawley's whistleblower is correct, we need the names of the agents who were supposed to be in the counter sniper team from the FBI who abandoned the site to the roof. And frankly, I think there needs to be a joint investigation of J6 and J13 because these two things are so intricately connected. This joint 1-2 punch between the Secret Service and the FBI in order to evade congressional oversight or in order to evade public questions about a matter of essential national security. Who knows? You know what, Benny? maybe Thomas Crooks was the pipe bomber. Think about this, right? Right? I mean, for all we know, for all they know, I mean, because think about this. This guy is still running around, this Osama bin Laden guy who planted live pipe bomb devices. That's what you told us, Chris Ray, right? Live pipe bomb devices at the major party headquarters of both the GOP and the DNC. And he's been on the loose for 3.5 years. You can't tell his age. You can't tell his race. You can't tell his sex. You haven't picked up a single hair follicle, despite him walking around D.C. on foot for 90 minutes. A single skin cell, despite him touching all of these different surfaces and devices. And, you know, this guy is still out there, the Osama bin Laden of the domestic terrorism world. And we've not heard anything in 3.5 years. They've completely closed it down under the banner of an ongoing investigation, just like, I mean, this is going to be a JFK thing. It's going to be, you know, the year is going to be 2786. You know, we're going to be an interplanetary species, and there will still be an ongoing investigation into the January 6th pipe bomber. But the fact is, it's the exact same structure here, even all the way down to the pipe bombs. So we need the names. And by the way, DHS had a very strange role in the pipe bomb stuff. Maybe a story for another time. But what I'm getting at here is, when a committee gets stood up on this, it's not enough to blame the DHS director, because this is not going to be at the DHS director level. This is not going to be an approved operation through formal channels with Kim Cheadle or Rowe. This is going to be structured as a kind of rogue cell with 2 or 3 or 4 guys keeping it all in-house, and all other communications are going to be informal on encrypted chats, or done in, you know, using effectively, you know, burner phones that are not traceable to an outside group that's effectively lobbying for it. That's the way this would be structured. But the fact is we need the names of all the HSI agents who were there that day. And then we need their communications. And we need to know if they were at the same gun range as Thomas Crooks. And by the way, those gun ranges keep logs of who came that day.
Mike Waltz was on, Congressman Mike Waltz was on our show, who's on the task force, and he said that the person who was running all of the communications inside of their little Secret Service black box was this known DEI hire, he called her, Trump hater, who's had a problem inside of the Secret Service and had been demoted, and she was the one who was in charge of absorbing all of the communications on that day and feeding them out to the agents. And so who is that person exactly? She was out of the Pittsburgh field office. It seems like they're hopefully starting down that path, but man, they don't meet for a month. Like, there's no urgency at all on any of this.
Well, do the dates line up? You know, I mean, getting back to the New York Post story about the gun range, what dates was Crooks there that DHS officers were also there? How far back does this go? Is this 6 months before? Is it a year before? Is it 2 years before? Because all of this could look fairly innocuous within DHS and Secret Service as it's happening. You are told not to be at a certain post for a totally, you know, seemingly reasonable reason, even though it might be a little weird. That is, you know, okay, well, this came from a higher up, but the higher up isn't necessarily read into this. And you could have a situation where they're monitoring this guy anyway. There were some reports early on that this guy had threatened to shoot up his school. One of his classmates said that. The principal denied it. But this could have been a guy they were monitoring for 3 years, like they did in the Garland, Texas event. And it could be that, you know, this person, they were having these encrypted chats with the person, and the person was saying that, you know, seemed to be willing to shoot the president. And they basically said, you know, they reasoned internally, well, you know, we'll prod this on, and, you know, we'll stop at the last minute. And then a decision could have been made at the last minute. Well, you know, we don't know 100% he's going to do it. And do we really need to stop it? You know, maybe we can stop it right after. I mean, you could see a lot of ways that this could have played out, where a lot of people halfway participating in it didn't fully know what it would manifest as. Man. And then Joe Biden, once this fails, Joe Biden drops out right afterwards. I mean, right afterwards. It's like, okay, you know, next plan. It's crazy, Mike. I mean, it's why you just blew my mind, for lack of a better terminology. You blew my mind.